make them as long as you make them a different colour, but remember that you're not keeping your test. But at the end of the time, you can photograph. So it might benefit you to make the corrections on the test in a different colour, so that when you do photograph, you have got that. Okay, what am I doing? I'm making a Google Meet. So I must have sent them an invite already this morning, is that correct?
I think you just pressed the video on.
Wait, but I'm doing the wrong thing, because this one has a video. Oh.
Wait, now.
I'm listening.
Why don't you use this one and then present?
Because that one doesn't have a camera. So on that one, I need to project onto there.
No, wait, I'm saying why don't you use that one and then present what's on the screen, and then they'll see your screen.
Oh, because, no, I don't know. I don't know. I swear, if one more thing goes wrong today, I'm going to actually just burst into tears and go home. So, okay, what am I doing? I'm doing a Google Meet, which means I need to go to my calendar. And on my calendar, I need to click. Okay. Join the Google Meet. Yes, there we are. Alright, I've got to admit session. Okay, then on this one, sorry. Yeah. That's okay. So sorry, Bonga, life is just not going smoothly. My brain's also not working. Okay, right, so going. Everything in red is stuff that I wrote as comments when I went through the test. So we're going really quickly through this then. Okay, so matching columns. Matching columns is really just learning work, and there's absolutely no excuse for not getting 8 out of 8 for a matching column thing, because that's Bloom's level 1. And this, when I mark this, this tells me how your test is going to go. Because if you're not doing well on this thing, then I just know that your test is going to go pear-shaped because you haven't done any learning. Okay, the only comment that I made on this particular one, when I was marking it, is that, in fact, I did accept L for nourishes sperm, but I wasn't entirely happy with accepting it, because L was the seminal vesicle, and the seminal vesicle secretes a liquid which nourishes the sperm. So I don't think it's entirely awesome, but I did accept it. Okay, So within that matching columns, the second one was E, the third one was A, the fourth one was J, the fifth one was C, the sixth one was G, the seventh one was F, and a lot of you wrote B. And that tells me you haven't learned your work. Prolactin makes the mammary glands make milk, but the releasing of the milk is oxytocin. And there's a difference between those two. You can't get them wrong. And then the last one was I. Okay. The multiple choices. 1.2.1 was B, 1 mark. The second one was A, 1 mark. The third one was A, 1 mark. The fourth one was D, 1 mark. The fifth one was A, 2 marks. The sixth one was C, 2 marks. Please make sure that if you got number 5 or number 6 right or wrong, that you've got 2 ticks or 2 crosses. Okay. Then there was the population pyramid and population growth curve. Okay. 2.1 was A. In other words, only the first option of the 2 was correct. 2.2 was A. In other words, the phase shown in graph 1 in which the limiting factors are not negatively affecting the rate of the growth of population. Phase 2. If phase 1 was also an option, then phase 1 would also have been correct. But it wasn't an option, so it wasn't correct. Good evening, Joshua. How are you? I'm fine.
That's good.
Josh, I'm not sure where your paste is. I've thrown it away. No, here it is. And you guys say Tubbsy was here today? Okay. Right. The third one was B. In other words, it was only term 2, only item 2 was correct. So it was phase 4. And then 2.4, and this one must be for 2 marks, was also B. It was phase 4. Okay. All right. Definitions.
Now,
Yeah.
when we're done going through the test, please can you explain those 2 graphs? Like the stacking one. On the right. Not the one that looks like a stack. Graph 2. Graph 2. Pyramid.
The population pyramid thing that I slaved over a hot stove for hours doing an online lesson on.
Yes, but I'm sorry, the weird question, I just get it.
Okay. That's fine, I'll go to it. Just remind me, Jadla, because you know I won't remember.
Okay, thanks, Mom.
All right. Okay, the term population is a group of individuals of the same species living within a community, habitat, or area, such that random interbreeding can occur between them. Okay. Now, guys, there are a whole lot of definitions around this thing that are sort of similar to each other, like the definition of a species and the definition of a community. And you guys are not clear in your head which definition applies to which thing. You must get the definitions correct. Because often you'll get a long question that hangs on this. Like there will be a description of a community or an ecosystem, and then it'll say, how do all the elephants in this area meet the definition of a population. And if you don't know the definition of a population, you can't apply it to something else. Okay. So which of those two species is the predator? It's the mongooses. Or the mongoose. Yes, mongooses. Okay. And there are two ways in which you can tell. So even if you don't know what a mongoose or an elephant shrew is, because you're a sad little puppet.
Man, literally, how are we meant to know this? Like, we don't just see elephant shrew just like walking randomly.
Are elephant shrew animals? Or is it plants? It's an animal. Like it's
Oh, you see, that's what I'm saying. Like, we
Okay,
don't just watch
how
them
big is a
randomly.
shrew?
I don't know.
Really?
No, genuinely. I thought the mongoose was a bird, but then at the same time, I thought it was a, you know, those a moose. And then I thought that the elephants were actual elephants.
I thought it was a moose animal, to be honest.
Okay.
Like cows.
Okay. It'll steam up my mask if I cry. So, let it go. Okay. So mongooses and elephant shrews. But guys, you can tell.
How?
No, because the number of mongooses is lower than the number of elephant shrews.
Yeah.
So even if you don't know what they are, you can tell which one's the predator and which one's the prey. Okay. Now they wouldn't use the term prey if it was a plant. Because very few animals rush up to a plant, chase it after it through the bush, jump onto its back, bring it down fighting, bite its neck, and then rip out pieces of the plant. You can't really use the term prey. Oh, sorry. Sorry, excuse me laughing. You can't use the term prey. I just had the shittest day. Just let me laugh about something that's funny. You can't use the term prey if you're talking about plants. Okay. So is this thing on? You can only use predator-prey when you're talking about an animal eating another animal. Hunting and killing and eating another animal. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the mongooses must be the predator because the population of elephant shrew is always, how drunk am I? Lower.
No, you're correct.
Population, oh, you were correct, I was correct. Thank you. I appreciate that. For a brief moment there, I thought I was under the weather. Okay, so the population of prey is always higher than the population of predators. And you can see in the numbers on the table that the elephant shrew numbers is higher than the mongoose numbers. Okay, and then the second way in which you tell is, remember, when they were plotted on a graph, the number of, you can always see the number of prey goes up, and shortly after that, the number of predators goes up, because now there's more food for them to eat. Then the number of prey drops, and therefore there's less food, so shortly after that, the number of predators drops. Because now there's less food for those predators to eat. So you'll always find that those two go up together and go down together. But it's always the predator is slightly after the prey. Goes up because there's more food for it to eat, goes down because there's less food for it to eat. So that's a second way in which you tell. So if you look through the figures in the table, you would see that correlation occurred. Okay. All right. What technique could you use to measure the population number of mongoose? Okay, so now in theory you should not try and do a census on these animals because they're tiny and they move really quickly and they burrow. So you're not going to get the mark recapture technique, the census technique to work terribly well on them. The only reason why I accepted census was because the numbers were very low and it was on an island. And because if you looked at the numbers on the table, I think the maximum it went up to was like 17 or something. Yeah, 17 was the highest. And so when you think about it, maybe you could do a census on them because you might, with only 17 of them, have got to recognize them all. So you might know that that one that's got a funny little fat face is, you can call it number 1 or you can call it fat face. And you might be able to, after a period of time, identify them all individually. And if you were able to identify them all individually, then you could do a census. It would be appropriate. So I accepted census, but it's not a good option because really all mongooses look similar. They're small, they move quickly. And so then if I mark the census correct, I did a carryover error. You know what COE means? Carryover error for the next few questions. But you in fact could not earn as many marks in the flow diagram. Okay, so why would you do a mark recapture technique versus a census? Because mongooses burrow, therefore not all of them would be seen in the census method, or mongooses are not easily identifiable, or mongooses are small and run fast and so are difficult to count. Whereas, and remember, if they say to you, are you doing, which one is better, this method or this method? You have to answer as a comparison. You have to say, I would do this method for these reasons, but not that method for those reasons. So then you've got to say, whereas the mark recapture technique enables a population of rapidly moving organisms to be estimated, and it's fairly accurate. All right. Again, this depends on what you answered for the previous question. If you said mark recapture, then it's indirect, because a sample is counted, a formula is applied, and the number in the population is estimated. And again, this is a comparison question. So you've got to say, whereas in a direct method, every individual is counted. Okay. And it would be the other way around if you've written census. Jay, do you need me to go through the census thing, Kerry?
Yes.
Okay. It would just be the opposite way around. So you would say it's a direct method because every individual is counted. Whereas if it was an indirect method, a sample is counted, a formula applied, and the number in the population is estimated. This is just the other way around. Okay.
Ma'am?
Yes.
If you said that a mark recapture method would be more effective because there's a small amount of them. There's a small number of them, and they have fur which can be easily marked. Is that not valid?
No. And I think that a mark recapture technique on a small number of individuals is not that effective. Yeah, but the marking on the fur thing, no, because you can mark a fish easily. You punch a scale, or you punch a hole in the tail fin or something. Yeah, there are lots of different ways to mark things. Okay, then this question. Now guys, you've got to be so careful because you are answering reliability or validity when the question actually asked you accuracy. So it said, state one precaution you would take when using this method to ensure that your answer is as accurate as possible. And so this would be the marking must not affect the animal, the mark mustn't wear off between counts. One of you said the mark must be permanent. No, ideally you would want it to wear off over time. You don't want to see this thing 60 years later still having a little mark on it. So it doesn't have to be permanent. The individual must mix with the rest of the population after the marking, must be able to mix with them. Population must be closed, no births or deaths during the time of the investigation. And the chance of an animal being captured must not change due to age or experience during the time of the investigation. Okay. All right. Then you had to do a flow diagram. And this was divided into two separate sets of marks. So first of all, a mark for the heading. And then a mark for whether or not you used short phrases or individual words going down the page with arrows between them. And 2 marks were allocated for that. Then 3 marks were allocated for these steps, whether you were complete or not, and whether you made silly errors. So the one thing that many of you left out, you spoke about a sample being taken, the first sample, and then you said they were all marked and they were thrown back. What you didn't say is that they were counted and the number was recorded. And that is critical. If you don't say that, that's one of the most important things. Because how are you going to plug it into the formula later on if you didn't count them? So you've got to count them and record that number.
Now, if I said record number but not count it, should I not still get the mark? Because if you record the
No,
number...
you possibly got the mark, but I put a little thing in there that you need to always say count and record the number. Okay. All right. So you probably, I wouldn't have taken a mark off if you said record the number. All right. Then all of them released. Time is allowed for them to mix. For example, in this case, it would be about a week. Then a second sample is taken. And again, you guys left out. They counted. The number of individuals marked is also counted, and those are recorded. Okay. Then you say a number of second samples should be taken and averages calculated. Okay. And then you could either say the Peterson index is applied, or you could say this formula is applied and give the formula. Okay, but you can't just say and apply a formula, because then I don't know whether it's E equals MC squared. I don't know what formula it is that you're applying. You must either call it the Peterson index or you must give the formula. Okay. All right, everybody okay with that? Okay. Then the hormones. Okay. Hormone Q that is secreted during stage 3 is estrogen. And then you had to explain the hormonal changes that must occur in order for the process represented by number 4 to occur. And there are 2 things here. As the levels of estrogen rise, because of the follicle developing, that stimulates the levels of luteinizing hormone to rise, and that stimulates ovulation. Okay. 4.3. If a woman wants to fall pregnant, at which stage, 1 to 5, should she have sexual intercourse? Explain your answer. It should be at 4, because that's when ovulation occurs, and therefore an egg cell would be moving down the fallopian tubes at the same time as sperm was moving up the fallopian tubes, and fertilization could occur. Okay. All right, then you have that graph of the endometrium, and it told you that ovulation occurred on the 21st day of March. So during which days in March is this woman menstruating? And that is B. And if you look at B, when the endometrium is breaking down, it's day 11 to day 13. And this tick that's moved and gone underneath here, because this is word, 1 mark for 11 and 1 mark for 13. And I sort of took one on either way, but I didn't take more than that. Okay. All right. Then you have to match the various stages with the letters. And stage 1 to 4 was letter C. Stages 4 and 5 was letter D. And stages 5 and 6 was letter B. Okay. Because at 5 and 6, between 5 and 6, the corpus luteum is breaking down. And if the corpus luteum is breaking down, no more progesterone and estrogen are secreted, and therefore menstruation would be occurring, and therefore it would link with B. Okay. Certainly not with A when the endometrium is building up. Okay. So then that next question was, if the woman does not want to fall pregnant, between which dates in April should she avoid having sexual intercourse? Now, if you remember the notes on the rhythm method, it's about 10 days on either side of ovulation where sexual intercourse should occur. And so ovulation occurs on the 17th of April if you count it forward. And so it's about from the 15th to the 23rd of April. But I did take a little bit of leeway on either side of that. Okay. What kind of method of contraception is this? Rhythm method. Where are you kids getting rhythmic? I didn't get it once, I got it like 20 times. Why are you calling it a rhythmic method?
No, I think it was just so strange that we thought that rhythm wasn't like the right word. We tried to think. Please give us the word, because at least we know the word. You can see that we know the word.
No, loves. No, I can't accept that. Okay. Then, if you were a school counselor, explain why you would not advise this form of contraception to a teenage schoolgirl wanting to have sex. And I needed you to link to the fact that this child was a teenager and a schoolgirl. So a teenager's ovarian cycle is often not stabilized. And in order for the rhythm method to be effective, it requires a stable, regular cycle. And therefore it wouldn't be effective. And in any case, it's not a very effective method, as I am evidence thereof. And a young schoolgirl can't risk falling pregnant. And in fact, the younger a person is, the greater their chance of falling pregnant. Because remember, we've spoken about the fact that the older a woman gets, the lower her chances of falling pregnant. So a schoolgirl has far more chance of falling pregnant than an older woman. And then you could also have spoken about the risk of contracting STIs with the rhythm method. I don't accept that, although it wasn't on the model answer. Okay, guys, are you all right with that? Okay, listen to what I need you to do, though. Go through and count the ticks. You know I'm arithmetically challenged. Okay. Are you still asking me to go and explain the graph?
No, man. I just wanted to ask for what you said after for 4.6.1.
Oh, the 15th to the 23rd. Okay, and then I took one down either side of that. Bonga, sorry, you wanted to ask something?
Please go back up to 4.4.
Say again.
Please scroll up to 4.4.
Okay, but now don't forget the second tick that somehow burped onto the next line. Okay?